Nyanji Jimbur Dundun Himi Jong, Dunder Munum Jimbur Namjam. Bakir Targam Sando Sharmardo, Tombati Jejan Laki Shamsa, Kora Dogar Dunjar Nyambungar, Yondan Kunzogavi Chetra. Noni Nyambo Repi Namjarba, Lonjar Ramjar Zoro Sorand. Jimmy Zanjar Zombia de Law, Banzola Basam Jion Danzo, Hui Pandem John Rumboche, Remjo Wardan Lamaraki Shamsar, Laika Don Ladanoja, Tremenda Dame Kanum, Drug, Idanum Jism, Tamjir Kaddel Dagachu Tanto.
To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching.
Tsorati, Tsora Mepra Rubber Sharte, Tina Tsora Goayang, Monsum the Mafshao, Santi Chu Yonsur Zobala, Tsora Ni Turmotya, Nandru Chibi, Semchen Tamsela, Nyaji Chimbo, Mepkipa, Mayano, Cherter Semchen the Surgeon the Nibber, Sembe Nad Servan Gera, Terter Shao, and the Dogla Chu Kanya, Never Jara Masharte, Sarasha and Masharte. Server yang masharte kan je kan le nat shonate yon se shiber shawi shir de te la chu shaber sha wo jete kan je na je kan le te yon se shiber shawi shir de jete kan je na ndarte lhagbar mugba no je wo lhagbar mugba je chirtawa mugba te zamda nachi je wo chala lhagbar mugba je na kansum le lhagbar mugba wo Lagbar Mugbi Yons Shiba Ganjian Dartate, Mugba Mechan Mamugba Wo, Gang Mamugba Den, Lagbar Mamugba Wo, Jim Mamugba Jen, Dartate, Dr. Tavadan, Paro Tavadan, Tava Nis Mamugde, Dina Mamuba Jibshao, Jahor Tertur Shantu Sanwe, Navadan, Gavadan, Navadan, Chevadan, Stivar Pang Yushir, the Duk Simla, Nibur Sambra Sha Wo. Jafur Shantu Sanwa Namji Natin, Chertava Yende, Kateterta Mayanda Zana, Bapatun me prendyo ro, Bapatun me Chimfen we. Dertate, Huerna, Shir Gorab Jombe, Huawaji Shava, Tejender, Gavadan, Nava, Dan Chivir, Dungur, Jivership, Shantu Sanwaji Shao. Shang Chibsen Hua Nava Natin the Nyamdo, the Nan the Yantaba Mayan, Yopa Mayan Batevjan, Semjin Tamji, Natyan Yantaba Mayan, Yopa Mayano, Jitabar Shate, Theatre Tona, Payon de Homer Maroon Jean, Semjan Namla, Nyanji Chimburkir, Lorigi, Nyomon Barpan, Shir, Mumber, Sumber, Nyanji Chimbo, Semjan Namla, Tian, Mautoso, Tijir Jena. Payundur Tongwe Nyanji Chimbo Ner, Tiar Nams of Shanchu Sanwa, Turin Ro, Payundur Tongwe Kanir Dangwa Dam Travis Nyanji Chimbo of Shanchu Sanwa, Tiar Namsan, Tur Manjuro, Stava Kanir Dangwa, Kunder Dangwa, Marchete, Te Sim Kanir Dangwa Meper, Jeve and Roa, Tur Jin de Tur Jin de Shungo. Tur Jender Tiejan, Tur Jendum Jonga Sem, Jambar Namnap, Jamba Leturi Churtombar Nisham Toyodo, Nderte, Jondan de Dagnip Jama Parur, the Jamba Letura de Nemete, Dag Ture Parur the Parur the Jama Letura de Neodo Gipsiate. Dina, Devena, Shanchu Sen Hua, Dro, Shanchu Sen Hua. Shanchu Senhua Trur Shi, Jambar na Mashago, Telap Jamba dan Trura Ganjina, Tap Mepper Tripi, Trura Yonson Zambana, Shanchu Senhui Jango, Tap Yitripi in Joran Jigbana, Drorago, Sim Tap Mepi Santan, Tangin Zanta, Numbrin Jigbi Rom Yuano, Shanchu Senhui Jango, Tap Gip Santan. Nyang Tangin Zenji Rom Yuan, Drorago, Tapki Mazam Besheribna Jango, Tapki Zimba Sheribna Drorago, Sheribki Mazambi Tabna Jango, Sheribki Zimbi Tabna Drorago, Tela Tapki Mazam Besherib Jamba Ganjin and the Tarte, Tomba Nitam, Sama Mepa, Momba Meba, Langibra Nijam, Sandan, Wishu Zomboda, Sandiki Zenga Genda, Semchenam Yonsur Membra Shavala. Mo Sembana Tapki Mazambi Sherip Janwa Wo. De la Tapki Zimba Sherip Dora Ganjina, Dartatim, Sanda, Wishes Zombodan, Sandiki Zengar Genda, Sandiki Semchin Yonsur Member Shevala, Sem Nibber Semchan, Tomba Netam, Sama Mebadan, Momba Mebal, Jibber Shepan Dona, Tapki Zimba Sherip shirbo. Tela shirb ji mazam bi tapkang jena ndarta tir tawa tamchitang nyumumba tamchitang rdangwa tang wagla nyerwa tang jisi chakba tang kung chuwa lang nipi givir tsawa zombar tamchit shangchib tu muhngwa na shirb ji mazam bi shangchib tu muhngwa na shirb ji mazam ji tapjib changwa go. Tela shirb ji zimbi tapji chura kang jena ndarta tir tawa tamchitang nyumumba kanir dangwa tang wagla nyer tang jisi chakba tang kung chuwa pangwi givir tsawa zomba tamchit shangchib tu yongsu nguba dijang mernimbi shangchib senhui shiribji zimbi tapde cholago njakhor te lab shangchib senhua ne shangchib senhua nawe tertar chote tag nibr sambar sharte gang li dang sem dang nalla martagba dang dungor dang tomba dang dagme bar togba ten shiribo gang li ji nad yongsur pongwala merkyo war ten kori jun mokchup semchin ji tun jorwala jisu shopa ten tabso jayang gang li dang sem dang nad nam pansang chigne chigde xarwar yang mayer nyangwa yang mayen bar togba ten shiribo gang li dang sem dang nad nam shindu jiwa ngokbar merkyo ten tabso
Next, let us teach the Vimalakirti Sutra. I also introduced this Vimalakirti Sutra to everyone yesterday. Vimalakirti, the layman, gave different teachings for those of higher capacity, meaning for those of sharper faculties and those of duller faculties. In particular, the methods for an ill bodhisattva to transform illness into the path were spoken of extensively. As for this passage of text, the amount we have covered is not particularly large. What is the reason for this? It is because the dialogue between Manjushra Bodhisattva and Vimalakirti the layman is deeply meaningful. The content also has practical value for us as practitioners, so we have not been rushing through the material. Basically, we teach as much as we can each day. The meaning of the Dharma is very important. Therefore, what we teach daily is not an especially large amount. In any case, we still have some understanding of what has been taught. This is what I feel is very key. We often feel, and perhaps everyone has a sense of this, that in such a degenerate age and in the era of the decline of the Dharma, to have some understanding of the teachings of such an excellent Mahayana Sutra is rare. After everyone has gone through the teaching and tutoring together like this, I think most Dharma friends should basically be able to understand it. This is something very meaningful in our lives. So in the process of studying, everyone must have patience and must have diligence. In doing both worldly and transcendent matters, patience and diligence are extremely important. If a person has patience and diligence, even if their wisdom is not especially high, they will certainly achieve accomplishment. This is one aspect. There is also another aspect which I also spoke about yesterday. In all the different places we are in now, there are quite a lot of Dharma friends studying Mahayana Buddhism. Some of them are studying the words of my perfect teacher. Some are studying the various 5 great treatises. Some are studying sutras. As for the direction going forward, it remains as always. On the basis of studying and reflecting, everyone should practice. Of course, in the process of studying and practicing, whether from an individual perspective or sometimes from the perspective of a group or from the level of the various Buddhist learning communities in different places, there will certainly be more or fewer adverse conditions and some obstacles. This is an inevitable pattern. So at such times, I hope everyone will not run away nor panic, because from the time I came to Larungar over these many years, even though it has been difficult for our teachers, and including in the process of studying and propagating the Dharma ourselves, it has never been very smooth. But we have always continued with a steadfast mind. If we continue to make effort with a mind of skillful means, it always leads to very good results. So for the Dharma friends in all places, there may be quite a lot of people now studying the preliminary practices. Those studying other subjects are also doing quite well. Of course, for some who have graduated from our Tantric teachings class, if you wish to continue studying, we will also provide everyone with very good and accessible methods. Some may restart from the beginning. Some may study the 5 great treatises. There are various situations. We will also try our best to serve everyone. And in the process of studying like this, if you yourself are not very willing, you can leave at any time. Here, I do not exert any control whatsoever over any single person. It is completely free and completely voluntary. But in the process of studying, everyone should avoid having conflicts. One should treat all like-minded Dharma friends with great earnestness. Everyone should not give rise to afflictions. Actually, we humans are truly beings of affliction. Occasionally and inexplicably, afflictions arise. This is a normal phenomenon. So, in the process of studying, what is it I want to say? Everyone should also not be afraid. It seems some people are especially timid. At the slightest thing, whether something comes up at home or some slight external stirring, at the slightest thing they become terrified and extremely afraid. If there were a hole in the ground, they would immediately want to crawl into it. If they had a pair of wings, they would want to fly away. They worry especially about everything, like a pointless worrier. There is no need for this. Studying, reflecting, and practicing, no matter which country or place you are in, everyone should study in a very normal way. If we use the study of the Dharma to do business and make money, in that case it is hard to say. So from 2006 onward, whether online or in person, and since 1987, we have always been transmitting the Dharma completely free of charge, including when visiting various countries. This is somewhat different from the customs of some places. Our online teaching is the same. Now, in various schools, if someone is capable, even for just learning the Tibetan alphabet, they charge money. But we will not do this. So in any setting, the heart is at ease. Dharma friends who are studying should also be like this. In any place, as long as one does not violate laws, regulations, or policies, it is impossible that a thunderbolt will suddenly descend from the sky and immediately have you be born in the pure land of Sukhavat on the spot. Such a phenomenon will not occur. So everyone should have a very steadfast mind. In our process of seeking learning, there will certainly be difficulties. When seeking the Dharma, as it also says in the Tantras, cross over mountains of swords and seas of fire and give up one's body and life to seek the true Dharma. In the process of seeking the Dharma, one must cross over seas of fire and mountains of swords. Even when facing danger to one's life, one should seek the excellent true Dharma of the Tathagata. This is the proper responsibility of every single practitioner. Everyone should also think about this carefully. This is very important. Then when seeking the Dharma, let me first say something to everyone. Yesterday I said that the merit of hearing the Dharma is extremely great. I used the scriptural citation from the Khenpo Sutra to explain this. Now today I want to also say that when hearing the Dharma, first toward the true Dharma, one must have a positive faith. If one does not have positive faith, although the Dharma is excellent and the teacher is especially remarkable, our own mind stream will not receive genuine benefit. As the Maharatnakuta Sutra also says, we have used this before. In the Chinese Tripitaka, the Maharatnakuta Sutra also says, a person without faith does not give rise to any wholesome qualities, like a burnt seed that cannot produce roots or shoots. The Chinese version should be completely the same as the Tibetan. If there is no faith, one truly cannot receive genuine blessing. Guru Padmasambhava also said that if a person has no faith, the sunlight of great compassion cannot enter. Without faith, it is like a cave facing north. The sunlight of great compassion cannot enter. If there is faith, then the blessing of the teacher and the blessing of the true Dharma are also naturally received. Guru Padmasambhava also once said, with steadfast faith, blessing is received. If free from doubt, all wishes are fulfilled. It seems this was used in the words of my perfect teacher before. A person who has faith receives the blessing of the Buddha, the blessing of the teacher, and the blessing of the true Dharma. They receive all kinds of blessing. It mainly depends on one's own faith. If there is no faith, you might just ask for a blessing. You might say, hit me hard. That's not enough, hit me again. No good, I still do not feel anything. Hit even harder. But no matter what you do, even if your head is bleeding, you will not necessarily receive blessing without faith. If there is faith, there is no need to have something struck against your head. One receives blessing through their own faith, and through studying and reflecting, if one is free from doubt, then one's wishes are fulfilled. The Dharma one practices can all be accomplished. Therefore, as a practitioner, you must first use various methods to increase the faith within your own mind stream. Then, through various skillful means, study and reflect well. Study Buddhist logic and study Madhyamaka. And then dispel your own doubts. After this, your practice will naturally be accomplished. Otherwise, for those of us who lack systematic study and reflection, without the guidance of a good spiritual friend, truly, no matter how many years you have taken refuge or practiced, perhaps your mind stream will not have advanced even half a step. Everyone should think carefully on this point. Today, let us begin teaching the Vimalakirti Sutra. Yesterday, we spoke of his illness. If one has the illness of emptiness, this illness of emptiness is also empty. This principle was explained before. Today, we say, assuming the illness we experience, in reality, this should also be eliminated. The suffering of illness that is experienced should also be eliminated. As for the method of elimination, one should eliminate illness according to the teachings of Mahayana Buddhism. So this sutra in reality embodies Mahayana thought. It is a particularly excellent sutra that embodies Mahayana thought. In each day's class, one may not necessarily attain an obvious realization every single day, but in reality, the wisdom and wholesome roots within one's mind stream will gradually and slowly accumulate. In the end, one's own mind stream will also become wholesome. Bodhisattvas who are ill should use non-experience to experience the experiences. For a bodhisattva who is ill, most of what is said here is from the perspective of the bodhisattva. How does an ill bodhisattva accept this illness? Because illness is an extremely painful thing. It is a kind of sensation. Among the 5 aggregates, it is the aggregate of sensation. There are pleasant sensations, painful sensations, and neutral sensations. There are 3 kinds of sensation. Then for a bodhisattva, the way of accepting is actually through non-experience. When we examine it from all sides, it is a kind of emptiness with nothing received. But for the sake of sentient beings, one must manifest the experience of all kinds of pain. Whether it is a headache or foot pain, one experiences all kinds of different illness and suffering. This is what it means to accept suffering. As a bodhisattva, they acquire realization without becoming complete in the dharmas of Buddhahood and without extinguishing experience. That is to say, for a bodhisattva, if one has not yet fully attained the Dharma, one will not enter the absorption of cessation to attain genuine nirvana. This means that as a bodhisattva, one must possess the Dharma to genuinely guide beings. Master Sengzhao also said, without completing the Dharma, beings are not yet guided. In other words, if a bodhisattva has not yet fulfilled the Dharma taught by the Buddha, it is impossible for them midway to act like a Sravaka or Pratyeka Buddha who enters nirvana alone and directly manifests the absorption of cessation to attain nirvana. They would not do this. Therefore, although a bodhisattva has many qualities and would certainly be capable of entering the absorption of cessation, if they have not yet finished benefiting beings or fulfilled all that the Buddha spoke of regarding the qualities of the paths and bhumis, they cannot arbitrarily enter the absorption of cessation. So we later learners should follow this example. Just because we become a little ill, we should not say we are giving up on beings or that we cannot continue because the body is unwell. Thinking our health is now very poor and our immunity keeps dropping, so we ask for leave to go down the mountain. One cannot casually leave the mountain. Before the Dharma is fulfilled, one cannot enter a similar absorption of cessation. Some may just want to eat and live a little better. That is merely a temporary human version of cessation, where one no longer transmits the Dharma or studies. Some Dharma friends want to attain this human absorption, living off the food supplied by patrons. If I had the opportunity to enter such an absorption, I could do it anywhere, but I feel that this is not very good. And perhaps many of us are the same. I am certainly like this myself. If I go out to rest, the body often feels worse. But if I go to do service and transmit the Dharma, the body can basically be maintained. Many illnesses simply do not arise. But once there is a holiday, even if it is just for one day, if there is no class for a day, the body feels unwell. So I feel that practicing and studying the Dharma is actually the best treatment for illness. One should not arbitrarily enter the absorption of cessation. When a bodhisattva experiences the suffering of illness, they should recollect the suffering of beings in the lower realms and generate great compassion toward them. This is what it means to endure suffering. Earlier we spoke of accepting suffering. Now it is about enduring it. When you are ill, no matter what the illness is, At that moment, you can think beings in the hells are suffering much more. Hungry ghosts are suffering much more. And animals are suffering much more. Even this tiny suffering in the human realm is so hard to bear. If I were reborn there, as described in the letter to a friend, if I truly took rebirth in those realms, how could I possibly endure it? Those beings are truly so pitiful. One then generates a tangible great compassion toward them. Sometimes we really do see some pitiful beings. When many Dharma friends go to the hospital, compassion seems to arise naturally. For example, if you go to the doctor for a headache, it seems as though everyone there is suffering from a headache. If you go to treat your foot, it seems as though everyone there is the same. When you truly see the suffering of people in the human realm, compassion naturally arises. This is enduring suffering. This should also be contemplated in connection with all beings. Since I am taming my own mind, as one must tame the mind after falling ill, I should also tame all sentient beings because of one's own mind. This taming mentioned here is by transforming illness into the path so as not to give rise to pain. Then one uses this approach to end the suffering of beings, finding ways to relieve their suffering. When we have the capacity, whether for the sick or the pitiful nearby, even for just one being, providing even temporary comfort and joy is exactly what a bodhisattva should do. When severing the suffering of sentient beings, one should only eliminate their illness and not eliminate the Dharma. This Dharma is actually like a wonderful medicine. It is a kind of method. This Dharma cannot be eliminated. We need to find ways to eliminate their illness, deluded thoughts, and all their physical and mental suffering. So how do we eliminate it? The main method for elimination is this: teach and guide them to cut the root of illness. To eliminate this kind of suffering, we can temporarily give them some medicine. It could be Chinese, Western, or Tibetan medicine. Even Africa has its own medicines. Every country has its own traditional medicine. If we offer these to them, some might say, this pill tastes good, or this is very good, try it and you will get better. Some medicines are promoted very vigorously. While these medicines help them at the surface, we must also look at the fundamental level. The roots of illness are greed, aversion, and delusion. The root of illness is ignorance and delusion. To sever this root, one should teach and guide them through the Dharma or by transmitting the wisdom of the selflessness of persons. The illness is fundamentally eliminated. So as a bodhisattva, one must tame these beings just as one tames one's own mind stream. Now let us discuss the root of illness that was just mentioned. What exactly is the root of illness? Actually, the root of illness is clinging and grasping. Regarding this clinging and grasping, some Dharma masters often talk about it. It involves attachment and the grasping at objects. When the mind has an attachment, it is called clinging. Master Kumarajiva explained it this way. Whenever the mind grasps at a Dharma through subject and object, this is what we call clinging and grasping. So what is the true root of illness? It is clinging and grasping. We often speak of craving, grasping, and attachment. These are all forms of clinging and grasping. The illness of beings is mainly due to attachment. Everything originates from attachment. Once there is clinging and grasping, the root of illness is already present. If we realize the selflessness of persons and phenomena, then we will understand that all things are like a dream or an illusion. At this stage, even illness is just like it is for an arhat. It is only a temporary kind of pain. They do not experience the true suffering of illness in samsara. This is the root of illness. What is it that is clung to? How exactly does this clinging happen? In what way does one cling? What is clung to is the triple world. This includes the desire form and formless realms. All things within these realms are objects of clinging. Some people cling to the meditations of the formless realm. Others cling to the meditations of the form realm. And others cling to greed or aversion in the desire realm. These are all different kinds of phenomena. Anything that is not uncontaminated is an object of clinging. So how do we eliminate this clinging? Actually, we use the method of emptiness. We cut through clinging, through non-attainment. If we achieve non-attainment, realizing the emptiness of all phenomena, and remain free from subject and object, then there is no clinging. This is what it means to have no clinging. We just said that non-clinging is attained through non-attainment. But what exactly is non-attainment? It means departing from dualistic views. And what are dualistic views? They are the internal view and the external view. The internal view refers to the view of self. The external view refers to the view of what belongs to the self. Or the internal view is the subject that grasps. The external view is the object that is grasped. So to summarize this concept of non-attainment, it means finding nothing at all. In the process of practice, one attains absolutely nothing. There is no attainment, absolutely nothing is found. Even the idea of non-attainment does not exist. So neither seeing nor not seeing exists. Neither attaining nor not attaining exists. From the perspective of Zen Buddhism, this is the highest state of realization. In the great perfection of the secret mantra, attaining absolutely nothing is also the highest state. For example, in Chan Buddhism, there was once a disciple of a national teacher named Chan Master Yuan. Chan Master Yuan was reading the Shurangama Sutra in the presence of this national teacher. A while ago, some Khenpo sent me several different Tibetan versions of the Shurangama Sutra. I have actually collected quite a few of them now. If the right conditions arise in the future, I would like to teach the Shurangama Sutra to everyone. Now that all the lights have gone out, we still need these lights. Recently, the staff from the Serathar Power Company, the Luho Power Company, and all the volunteers at our Larunga have been doing their absolute best to fix the issue. However, they still have not been able to find the cause of the outage. Just before I came up, I asked them what the reason was. They said they do not know yet. For the past 2 days, many people have been continuously searching for the cause, but they said they cannot find any reason at all. This is what we call non-attainment. But maybe they will find something in the next day or two. I'm not sure if they will. I was just talking about Chan Master Yuan. While he was reading the Shurangama Sutra, he came across, erecting knowing upon knowing is the root of ignorance. Knowing without seeing is nirvana. When he reached this passage, he attained a thorough understanding. Actually, while he was reading, the punctuation in the original Tripitaka was different from how it is read today. He actually read it incorrectly at the time. However, by relying on the blessings of the sutra and the blessing power of the lineage, he attained awakening. So this passage is telling us that ultimately there is nothing to be perceived in our mind. The essential nature of the mind also has nothing perceived. This is truly a genuine state of nirvana. As I mentioned earlier, our illness cannot truly be found in the end. For example, if I have a headache, it might be difficult to apply this theory to practice if we are not yet well versed in Madhyamaka or Tantric practice. But if our daily practice is strong, then even when you are in great pain, applying this pith instruction can be extremely profound and effective. In that moment, the so-called root of the illness is eliminated. This is one aspect of the pith instruction given to us. Then we have Vimalakirti, the layman. The Dharma friends who take the oral exams often say it wrong. I often say it wrong as well. The names Vimalakirti the layman and Vimalakirti Sutra are very similar. Vimalakirti the layman told Manjushri Bodhisattva, "This is how Bodhisattvas who are ill control their minds. This is how they eliminate old age, illness, death, and suffering. This is the Bodhisattva's Bodhi." As we discussed before, when a Bodhisattva is facing illness, whether they are taming their own mind or the minds of other beings, what is the primary purpose? It is to eliminate the suffering of birth, old age, illness, and death for all beings. In the Tibetan and Sanskrit versions, it includes birth along with old age, illness, and death. All 4 stages are mentioned there. However, in some other versions, birth is not included. As you can see, it is missing here too. So it seems fine whether it is included or not. This is the Bodhisattva's Bodhi. What exactly is the path of a Bodhisattva? It is actually taming the mind and eliminating birth, old age, illness, and death. That is what a Bodhisattva does. A truly genuine Bodhisattva is one who eliminates birth, old age, illness, and death for all sentient beings. This is truly very important. After we have generated bodhicitta, liberation from birth and death becomes our most important goal. This even includes those who propagate the Dharma in worldly terms. What do they usually emphasize? They often focus on how to be relaxed and happy. They talk about how well your business is doing, how happy your family life is, how pleasant your perfume smells, or how beautiful your flower garlands are. These things might temporarily appeal to our state of mind. In this human world, we cannot see what our future lives will be like, nor can we see what happened in our past lives. So we tend to focus only on what is right in front of us. We are quite attached to the conditioned phenomena perceived by our five senses. But is this what it means to be a bodhisattva propagating the true Dharma? Perhaps they are using skillful means to help people, but those things might not be what is truly important. The main point is for us to attain liberation from birth and death. This is essential. That is why I mentioned this a couple of days ago. Some of our Dharma masters and responsible persons often interact with our volunteers and Dharma friends by trying to make them happy or keep them content. They might buy flowers or other gifts, saying, "I am happy, I will take you somewhere." This is indeed a type of skillful method used by bodhisattvas, and it is important. But it is even more important that if you want to make them happy, you should give them more Dharma teachings. You should share more profound pith instructions with them. If their mind has truly awakened to the truth, or if they have penetrated some of the meaning of Madhyamaka, emptiness, that may be more important than anything else in the world. So when I traveled abroad in the past, I would bring back a few gifts for the volunteer staff, but later it became especially tiring. When I brought things, if I gave to one person, another was unhappy, and if I gave to that one, the other was unhappy. It is actually better to teach them some Dharma. I feel this is the Dharma that leads to liberation from birth and death. For me, this is also relatively simple to do. For them, it is also a source of joy. And perhaps its meaning is even more important. Therefore, the conduct of a truly genuine bodhisattva should be to think about how to sever the birth, aging, illness, and death of beings. This is truly very important for every person, especially now that we have studied the Dharma and have this opportunity. The majority of people in the world have no idea at all what birth, aging, illness, and death actually are. Once you truly fall ill or grow old and find yourself dying, you are utterly terrified. At that moment, you are utterly helpless. You might be clutching at your chest in extreme pain, but that is of no use. At that point, it is simply of no use. However, before that moment arrives, although we practitioners will also grow old, fall ill, and die, our approach to it is completely different. So even elderly people without an education, or illiterate ordinary people, can leave this world with complete confidence and in great peace. This is because within the Dharma there is a special pith instruction. On the other hand, there are some learned scholars and scientists who spend their whole lives researching various mysterious and profound fields. Yet when they finally grow old, face death, or are lonely, they have no good pith instruction of their own. This is also a great pity. Therefore, in many aspects of Buddhism, with regard to birth, aging, illness, and death, there is truly something significant. As the Tibetan text also states the same, I feel this sentence is very good. As for what a bodhisattva is, this will also be spoken of below. If it were not like this, then even though one cultivates, and even though one has practiced a great deal, this would be a foolish waste without any wise benefit. If you have not engaged in the struggle against birth, aging, illness, and death, and then just practice this or that Dharma, it seems as though many people nowadays rely on their own discriminating thoughts to fabricate all kinds of practice methods. In that case, it is actually a fruitless effort. It amounts to nothing. The word benefit in many versions means that there is no real meaning. There is no substantial meaning. It means it is fruitless. The phrase without wise benefit actually means if you have not eliminated birth, aging, illness, and death, then no matter how diligently you practice, in reality it is not of much significance. Below, a metaphor is given to explain why overcoming birth, aging, illness, and death is so important. For example, suppose a person battles a hated enemy and ultimately achieves victory. Upon achieving victory, people call them a hero, a courageous person, or a warrior. This is because you have already defeated the enemy. In that case, you are certainly a hero. According to some of the local customs in our area, whenever two people get into a fight, if one side has defeated the other, there is especially great admiration for the victor. So everyone feels that when fighting, one absolutely cannot lose. If one loses, it feels as though living in this world has no meaning anymore. Including when we were in school, fighting was seen as more important than gaining knowledge or anything else. So if someone had a strong position in the class, many students were extremely envious of them. One day a Westerner asked me many questions. I then told many stories about fighting back in primary school and stories of fighting in middle school. By the time I was at teacher training college, I basically didn't fight anymore. The stories ended there. After coming to the Larungar, there were no such stories. But there are occasionally stories of arguments with construction teams. By the same reasoning, eliminating aging, illness, and death is what defines a bodhisattva. The word jianchu here, as for the term jianchu, it appears in many versions, including Jachen's version. In the Tang translation, it is duanchu, meaning to eliminate. In the Tibetan, it is also eliminate. The meaning is consistent. As just mentioned, if one fights a hated enemy and is victorious, they are called a warrior. By the same reasoning, if one eliminates, actually this word jian may not necessarily be required. In our Chinese text, the jian in that context may not be there. It means eliminating old age, illness, and death. If you realize emptiness through the principles of the Dharma and eradicate ignorance, you can eliminate birth, old age, illness, and death. This is like when the Buddha renounced his worldly life. At that time, after seeing the suffering of old age, illness, and death, he began his renunciation. So many of our monastics and some practitioners indeed begin to practice for the sake of liberation from birth and death. If one truly eliminates old age, illness, and death for the sake of all beings, though birth is not mentioned in this specific line, the omission in the Tibetan text should be fine. If it says old age, illness, and death like this, then such a person is truly a genuine bodhisattva. So for a bodhisattva, this kind of action defines them. What is the definition of a bodhisattva? The one who severs the birth, old age, illness, and death of sentient beings is the bodhisattva. Sometimes when we see an elderly person, we might say, "Elder bodhisattva, please come over here." But can this elder bodhisattva actually sever birth, old age, illness, and death? They themselves are already struggling with old age, and they are also very ill. When they try to walk a few steps, nowadays, many of our Dharma friends, even the relatively young people start panting after walking just a little bit. They need to sit down for a while and then continue to walk. Severing old age, death, and illness for others is what a truly genuine bodhisattva does. A bodhisattva is like this. The above mainly discussed how a bodhisattva, when acting as a sick person themselves, should work to sever the illnesses of sentient beings. Then the text below says that one should not have an affectionate view or the view of love. This means you should not have a referential attachment that views sentient beings as truly existent. What is needed is non-referential great compassion. The following passage mainly focuses on this point. The bodhisattva who is ill should think as follows. An ill bodhisattva thinks, "This illness of mine is neither real nor existent. The illnesses of sentient beings are also neither real nor existent." First, as a bodhisattva, you should think about your own illness. Whether it is a headache, foot pain, or toothache, every one of us certainly experiences all kinds of ailments. For some, the body is fine, but they have heartache. They are also considered sick. Some have a healthy body, but their mind is not well. Some might say you have a mental illness. Their physical health is very good and they are strong, but mentally there is something wrong. Nowadays, when people hear mental illness, they think of something like being crazy or abnormal. In reality, regarding mental illness, every one of us actually has mental illness. Because greed, aversion, and delusion exist, every person is affected. Greed, aversion, and delusion are actually illnesses of the mind. So since we all have greed, aversion, and delusion, some people become especially upset when the term mental illness is mentioned. In the Tibetan region, we do not seem to use this specific term for mental illness. As soon as you say it, many people get angry. But I feel that when we talk about mental illness, indeed, there are so many illnesses of negative emotions within our mind stream. So if someone says you have a mental illness, why be upset? One should say, "Yes, you are right, I also have a mental illness." Perhaps you also have a mental illness as well. But whether it is mental illness or physical illness, it is not truly real. Indeed, when examined from many angles, it does not truly exist. Its essential nature is neither real nor existent. By the same reasoning, for every being, the illnesses of all other beings besides myself are also not real and not truly existent. When contemplating like this, what arises toward all beings? If one gives rise to an affectionate view of great compassion, one might think sentient beings are truly very pitiful. They suffer from mental and physical illnesses. Then you develop an especially strong attachment to them as truly existent. The affectionate view mentioned here means falling into a compassion based on their virtuous qualities, or falling into a compassion toward truly existent things. When I went to Africa and saw the beings there, I thought, wow, they are truly so pitiful. But in fact, this is a kind of affectionate view of compassion. It is because there is truly existent clinging without non-referential great compassion. In that case, this affectionate view of great compassion should be forsaken. Here he further elevates this teaching. One should have non-referential great compassion rather than attachment-based compassion. If you think beings are truly existent, and their illness is also truly existent, and the compassion you feel for them is also truly existent, this is called the affectionate view of great compassion. This should be relinquished. What is the reason for this? Bodhisattvas must eliminate adventitious afflictions and generate great compassion. As a bodhisattva, the adventitious afflictions within the mind stream, such as clinging to truly existent appearances, are all adventitious afflictions. One must eliminate these adventitious afflictions and truly existent clinging, and then generate great compassion toward them. This is the truly genuine compassion of the bodhisattva. As for the affectionate view of compassion, if your compassion toward them involves truly existent clinging, then toward birth and death there arises a weary mind. If your compassion toward them involves truly existent clinging, then you will generate a certain aversion toward samsara. After a long time, you may no longer wish to guide sentient beings. Even if you have done many things, you will no longer want to continue. This is because everything seems truly existent to you. When you look at sentient beings, they also seem truly existent. At first, many of us generate a kind of compassion. For example, some people keep pets. They think, oh, it is so pitiful, and bring it home. After bringing it home, the pet might disobey after a while. Then the people around you also begin to feel troubled. You yourself also start to feel afflictions and develop aversion. Your original compassion has aged and turned into hatred. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche often mentioned this. There is a saying that compassion ages into aversion. At this point, a sense of weariness arises. However, if one transcends this kind of affectionate view of compassion, there will be no aversion no matter where one is reborn. One will not be limited or obscured by that affectionate view. If you see beings as appearing yet without inherent existence, like a dream or illusion, even though they are very pitiful, your compassion is not the truly existent type felt by ordinary people. Without this kind of affectionate view of compassion, and having fundamentally understood that these beings are like a moon reflected in water, or like beings within a dream, you will have no weariness when you eventually guide them. Actually, the point here is to encourage us to understand and realize emptiness. If emptiness is realized, you can truly guide sentient beings without any exhaustion. If emptiness has not yet been realized, you might have an occasional feeling of renunciation or an occasional realization that beings are pitiful. For 2 or 3 days, you might say, I want to dedicate myself to this task with all my heart. But after some time, weariness will inevitably arise. If you truly see beings as being like a dream or illusion, then you know they are not truly existent, even though they are indeed very pitiful. In that case, you will have no truly existent clinging yourself, and you will have no truly existent clinging toward beings either. Then this sense of weariness will not arise. Some bodhisattvas can maintain their dedication for a very long time. Others might say, I'm so tired I cannot go on anymore. I have seen some volunteer staff around me who say, I no longer wish to serve. I really want to leave because the Khenpo does not seem to understand us. The Khenpo seems to be doing whatever. Sentient beings are also so difficult to guide. They are too stubborn and hard to transform. They all have opinions about me, and everything is difficult. Their minds are filled with truly existent things. When they speak, every word is harsh and rough. This is truly existent, and that is truly existent. Then certainly weariness will arise very quickly. This is an inevitable pattern of the mind. If you truly see that everything before us is like a dream or illusion, but you temporarily dedicate yourself to help beings wake up from this dream, you will have no inherent afflictions or inherent suffering. So sometimes we must reflect on this, whether we are serving others or experiencing illness. If we lack referential affectionate view of compassion, but possess non-referential great compassion, then your service, your good deeds, and your work in guiding beings will not be obscured by the affectionate view throughout all your lives. In this way, one liberates countless and boundless beings, yet in reality, not a single being is liberated. On one hand, you guide countless and limitless beings, but when you analyze the situation with wisdom, these so-called beings do not truly exist. They simply do not exist in that way. They will be born without bonds, able to explain the Dharma and emancipate others from their bonds. The phrase born without bonds is the same as the no matter where one is reborn mentioned earlier. No matter where these beings are, there is no bondage toward them. You can teach sentient beings the Dharma that liberates them from bondage. This means that if you do not have this kind of craving and clinging, then no matter where you are, you yourself are not bound. It does not matter which place you are in. Whether you are on top of the mountain or at the bottom, in the middle of the mountain or on the hillside, you might wonder, should I go down the mountain to propagate the Dharma? Or should I stay on the mountain to practice in retreat? Right now, our movement between the top and bottom of the mountain is like sitting in the middle of a mountain. Should I go down to share the Dharma, or should I go up to share it? Regardless of whether you go up or down, there is no bondage. One can also proclaim the essential Dharma that liberates sentient beings from their bonds. This is because the minds of beings are in great need of liberation. Actually, in our world today, most people are in great need of the Dharma. That includes ourselves. In this era, without the Dharma, it is difficult. Perhaps we follow Buddhism, and maybe followers of other religions also feel that their own faith is very important. We truly rejoice in their perspective as well. But as Buddhists, we hold this belief from the bottom of our hearts. If the principles in Buddhism are not understood, it does not matter if you are wealthy or if you are a powerful person of any kind. Genuine happiness in this world may not necessarily be attained. Even if it is attained, it will not last for long. We often encounter people who are especially fortunate from the perspective of worldly merit. Nothing can compare with their situation. But can they find happiness by relying solely on this worldly merit? It truly seems like they have a mountain of suffering. Because of their merit from past lives, they have many resources in this life, including power, talent, and everything else. However, within their own hearts, none of these things have made them particularly happy. So on the surface, many people look successful. We think they have become a celebrity, so they must be very happy. Or they have become a national leader, so they must be joyful. We might think this way. But once you truly possess such status and power, you might just be acting a certain way before others. I see that many people are actually in great pain inside, yet they appear especially joyful and successful to the world. Even in their own social circle, they post many very happy and positive things. When they are in deep pain, we might ask them why they feel that way. They say, I am living for the eyes of others, so I have no choice. But inside, I'm suffering so much that I want to end it all. Many people are in this situation. So the Dharma is very important. Beyond future lives, it brings us boundless strength and joy right now, even just within this lifetime, whether people have money or not, whether they are attractive or not, regardless of their status. When the genuine teachings of the Dharma are understood, they can find a great deal of strength in their lives. This kind of strength makes everything very meaningful, whether you are experiencing happiness or pain. One can then teach the Dharma to others. Since they lack that kind of personal clinging, they are able to do so. The sutras also speak of this. Layman Vimalakirti once cited the words of the Buddha. It is impossible for someone with bonds to emancipate others from their bonds. If you are bound yourself, being able to free others is simply not possible. It is absolutely impossible. If you are tightly bound by karma and afflictions, there is no way for you to liberate others from their bondage. For instance, if your own limbs are tied fast with ropes, you have no way to free someone else. Only if you are not bound yourself can you emancipate others from their bonds. This is possible and provides the opportunity to succeed. Therefore, a bodhisattva should not generate bonds. As a bodhisattva, one should not have worldly attachments, including clinging toward sentient beings. Whether it concerns people or matters, we should not become especially attached. If one becomes very attached, it truly makes things difficult. One might think, I am the only one who does not need to be bound, but you all must remain bound. Or they think, I am free and unhindered, while you all should not behave this way. Back in primary school, I had a teacher who drank every day. By the afternoon, we would try to see if he had been drinking again. If he had, we were all very afraid. He would enter the classroom after drunk. Once he was inside, he would say, I am your teacher, so I am allowed to drink. But you students are not allowed to drink. He frequently acted this way. After saying that, he would start trying to hit us. When he was about to hit us, we would shout to him from a distance, the principal is calling for you because something happened. Then he would slowly walk out of the room. As soon as he left, the whole class would run away. By the next day, he would have forgotten all about it. We never knew if he was truly bound by his habit or not. For some of us, having bonds or not might seem fine either way. But to truly guide beings, it is best to be free yourself. Completely liberating ourselves from all bonds can be difficult. However, at the very least, when one understands Mahayana Buddhism, the truths of the Dharma can still be shared with others. In that process of transmission, one should avoid truly existent clinging. Sometimes we feel very heartbroken when a certain project does not succeed, but there is no need for that. We often say Buddha deeds in a dream, a Dharma center like a moon on water. Adopting this perspective is much better for us. When His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche visited Mount Wutai in the past, just as he was taking his seat on the Dharma throne, the assembly was reciting the King of Aspiration prayer, like a lotus untouched by water, like the sun and moon unobstructed in space. This specific passage from the Avatamsaka Sutra was being chanted. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok remarked that this was a very auspicious omen for him. Just like a lotus remains untouched by the water, and the sun and moon move through the sky without hindrance, he would begin to benefit boundless sentient beings from that moment on. Everything can then be transformed into favorable conditions. This was also a very positive sign. Therefore, in everything we do, we should avoid having a strong sense of truly existent clinging. Yesterday I mentioned that Dharma friends in certain departments, as well as the Khenpos and Khenmos, should not travel around casually for pleasure. Later they told me that many had already cancelled their plans. This is very good, as they were quite obedient. However, many people also felt quite heartbroken about it. Being obedient is excellent, but I feel there is no real need to be heartbroken. Everything is like a dream and an illusion. Last year I was planning to visit several countries in Europe. I was set to visit 4 or 5 countries and had prepared everything. In the afternoon I was supposed to fly from Chengdu to Beijing. The next morning I had a flight scheduled for 11 o'clock. I was planning to fly to either the UK or Sweden at that time. The entire month-long itinerary and daily schedules were fully arranged. I was already carrying my travel bag, attending a final meeting that afternoon. My flight was at 6 o'clock. At 3 o'clock they asked me to attend a short meeting before heading to the airport. When I arrived at the meeting, many people were looking at me. I wondered what was happening. They said, "You might not be able to travel abroad this time." I thought about it for a moment. Showing pain or distress would have been meaningless. So I said, "That is fine. Everything is wonderful." In the end, I did not go. I had already arranged so many things. After completing all those arrangements, I was translating the Precious Garland of the Supreme Path, or a similar text. Since I could not go on that trip, I still had plenty of work to do here, which was fine. The same thing happened again this year. This year, I also could not make my planned trips. I had planned to visit Japan, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Malaysia, but I did not feel any affliction. Eventually, I still managed to go to Africa. For our Dharma friends, if one set of conditions does not work out, other conditions will certainly succeed. Everything is like a dream and an illusion. Do not become too attached. As it says, Bodhisattvas should not generate bonds. One should not remain bound. People often get stuck in a dead end over every little thing. They think, "I am suffering so much, what should I do?" Life has no meaning anymore. What is really going on here? There is no need for such thoughts, right? Next, we will discuss what bondage is, what constitutes a bond, and what constitutes liberation. We will now explain the difference between liberation and bondage. A desirous attachment to the flavor of meditation is the bond of bodhisattvas. Birth through skillful means is the emancipation of bodhisattvas. This is how liberation and bondage are defined. Here it refers to being attached to the clarity, bliss, and non-thought of samadhi. Of course, this description varies slightly in other translation versions, but the difference is not significant. It is acceptable to explain it this way: craving the flavor of worldly samadhi, and being especially attached to it, is a type of bondage for a bodhisattva. If you experience the flavor of samadhi through skillful means, that is the liberation of a bodhisattva. Therefore, one cannot have truly existent clinging towards samadhi either. The Lalita Vistara Sutra states, "Body and mind are still and unmoving, and also not tasting the bliss of samadhi. Do not cling to the pleasure found in meditation, but give rise to great compassion universally for all beings." If you consistently maintain great compassion for others, that generation of great compassion is a form of liberation for a bodhisattva. This sutra also mentions, to benefit all sentient beings, their mind is like empty space. I particularly like this scriptural citation. To benefit all sentient beings, their mind is like empty space. For the sake of benefiting others, their mind becomes as vast as space itself. In the process of propagating the Dharma and benefiting beings, do not let yourself be pained, grieved, or troubled by various matters. When you guide sentient beings, you will encounter all types of people. If you find most beings unbearable, it indicates that your practice is not very good. If you can accept most beings and see them all as Bodhisattvas, then your practice is quite good. Occasionally, you might find one or two people hard to bear. That usually relates to the karma and relationships from past lives. To benefit all sentient beings, their mind is like empty space. Everyone should keep this in mind. To benefit all sentient beings, their mind is like empty space. When we want to benefit sentient beings, our mindset must be as vast and open as empty space. Otherwise, if we are heartbroken all day long, then there is no way to accomplish anything, right? Below, the text speaks of 4 combinations. To be without skillful means and one's wisdom in bondage. To have skillful means with one's wisdom emancipated. To be without wisdom and have one's skillful means in bondage. To have wisdom with one's skillful means emancipated. These are the 4 kinds. These 4 will each be explained in detail below. First, what is it to be without skillful means and one's wisdom in bondage? It is for Bodhisattvas to use affection to ornament the Buddha lands and accomplish the salvation of sentient beings, and to control oneself within emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. So what is this called? This is called being without skillful means and one's wisdom in bondage. 4 categories are mentioned here, and everyone should remember them. First, having wisdom but lacking skillful means is actually a form of bondage. Why is this the case? If, as we mentioned before, there is a clinging view or an affectionate mind and a desire to truly ornament the Buddha land and mature beings, then regarding what we often call the 3 gates of liberation, within emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness, we can explain it like this. Because of the presence of an affectionate view, one has a truly existent mind regarding ornamenting the Buddha land, and a truly existent mind regarding maturing beings. This represents a lack of skillful means. It involves clinging and an affectionate view. Even though they seem to have a realization of emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. What is this called? It means lacking genuine skillful means while still possessing wisdom. This wisdom might just be a bare emptiness. So in the end, it still acts as a cause of bondage. One is unable to attain genuine liberation. This is the first aspect. Then the second aspect describes what is it to have skillful means with one's wisdom emancipated. It is not to use affection to ornament the Buddha lands and accomplish the liberation of sentient beings. One does not use an affectionate or truly existent mind to ornament the Buddha land. This means that when ornamenting the Buddha land, we do not use an affectionate or truly existent mind to cultivate the Buddha field or mature beings. One tames oneself so as to be without aversion within emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. In this way, one will not feel weariness when guiding sentient beings. This is wisdom embraced by skillful means. This is a very positive state. Then what is it to be without wisdom and have one's skillful means in bondage? It is for Bodhisattvas to abide in afflictions such as desire, anger, and false views, while performing much merit and planting a host of virtuous roots. What is this called? This is called being without wisdom, with one's skillful means in bondage. Because they still possess desire, anger, and delusion, they lack the view of emptiness and are therefore without wisdom. They only possess skillful means. As a skillful means, they accumulate wholesome roots. Some of us might not have even a trace of wisdom regarding emptiness, but we still accumulate some merit while dealing with anger, desire, and suffering. We might do good deeds while simultaneously generating anger. Some of our animal liberation practices are like this too. Some bodhisattvas generate bodhicitta on one hand while arguing with others. It seems they are doing good deeds for a moment, including some people here who argue with others even while offering butter lamps. Their state of mind is actually quite poor. However, they still make a sincere effort to serve the monastic community. What category do these people fall into? They are performing good deeds as a skillful means but without wisdom. That is still acceptable as long as some virtue is accumulated, right? Then what is it to have wisdom with one's skillful means emancipated? It is to transcend the afflictions of desire, anger, and false views, and after departing from these views and afflictions, to plant a host of virtuous roots and rededicate the merit toward Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. This is the best approach. On one hand, they have moved away from these clingings themselves, and on the other hand, they continue to perform excellent deeds. while dedicating that merit toward enlightenment. When we perform good deeds in the future, I truly hope everyone will, whether it is study and reflection, sutra recitation, or any virtue, see the task through from beginning to end, as this is very important. Otherwise, it is like having a wholesome mind for just a brief moment. Some of our volunteer staffs, perhaps due to the pressures of their work, spend every day arguing and feeling very heartbroken, yet they also appear to be doing good deeds. It is hard to say whether their merit or their faults are greater. Their state of mind is quite poor. They have a sorrowful expression every day, looking very heartbroken, and anyone who sees them feels heartbroken as well. Among our volunteer staffs, I'm not saying this applies to everyone, so do not think this is directed at a specific person or that it is directed at another. I have not named anyone, but you can look into this for yourselves. Manjusri Bodhisattva, that Bodhisattva who is ill should contemplate the Dharmas like this. Shall we stop the teaching here? Actually, there is a bit more to discuss below, but it seems we have run out of time. Shall we end at the phrase, "This is called having wisdom with one's skillful means emancipated"? Ending here should be fine, right? All right, let us stop here.
Bandangara Badna Sodargye Bandangara Badna Sodargye Bandangara Badna Sodargye